Fill thy cowardly tongue.
Oh, holy shit.
Prepare thyself for battle, witch.
Do I know you?
Alright, Hung, I don't know what you're on, but I think it's clouding your judgment.
Naked master, the scales have finally fallen from mine eyes.
Miss, are you okay? Have you been in an accident?
'Tis no accident! Go no closer! Although I have gazed upon thine visage before, 'tis only by the light of yon moon hast thou true nature revealed itself!
Okay, Hung, ease up there, buddy. I think she really needs some help. Excuse me, do you really need some help? Are you...
Fuck you and the mustache you rode in on!
Queen of lying took her bow, and then she turned gold. Prince of peace embraced the gloom and walked the night alone. Dancing in the dark night, see to the morning light. Lights and forest tonight, and time will tell us all. For the eastern glow, the valley is home, the seeds of happiness. The care, repay, do not forget. No, no, darker night, sink to the morning light. Brown to black, the tyrant's face is red. Oh, what was the common cry? Pick up your souls and fly. Alright, hey, welcome to Operation End Times. I'm your Jedi warrior for Jesus. Pardon my singing, man, but you know what? There's a purpose behind it. I like to just mess up the soundtrack of whatever it is I'm putting on the video, just so that it's, you know, they can't say I'm trying to use it for, like, monetary gain or nothing. Anyway, hey, welcome. This is a continuation of my new series, The Two-Faced God. I'm calling this episode 2, The Battle of Evermore. And you know, that first clip we saw was from a movie called The Knights of Badassdom. But it was where this guy, Dinkle, the dwarf, his eyes, the scales came off and he could see that this woman was a demon and he attacked. Unfortunately, he missed and got thrown against a wall. So there's a lesson to be learned here, that if you're going to be a knight, you better know what you're doing. You better be specially trained. You know, pretty much all cultures out there, the Vikings, you know, they got Ragnarok and this huge battle of good versus evil at the end. You know, in the Bible, that's kind of what's unfolding both in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. It's the day of the Lord. It's where all these nations are surrounding Israel. In Revelations, it's there. In the New Testament, it's the Battle of Armageddon. You know, I got this map here. It's been coming in pretty handy, man. But the Battle of Armageddon's kind of like somewhere in here. You know, there was this huge battle. You know, Sodom and Gomorrah is down here. But, you know, in the Bible, there are many battles of Armageddon. And you know what? In the linear progression of time, we have had super battle against super battle, World War I, World War II, and you know what, my friends? It would be sad if we're sitting here looking, out from the precipice of World War III, But that's kind of what a lot of the end-time prophecies foretell, is wars and rumors of war, and the red horse that rides out with a sword that has the power to make war. So, in the book of Hosea, Hosea 10, we're going to look at it, and we're going to look at Genesis 14. We've been looking a lot at Dan and the Vikings. Dan represents the mighty man that gets cut off in Revelation 7. Doesn't get sealed, and like I've been telling you, there's both a positive and a negative reflection, because there's both good news and bad news for Dan. And likewise with Judah or any of these tribes, Benjamin, there's both light and dark, But what you will find is that there is constantly war going on. There's like super kingdoms of Egypt to the south, Syria to the north, and Babylon kind of off that way. They're constantly marching back and forth. And of course, then there was even the Roman Empire, people marching through here, just ripping up and warring and destroying people. But then, even within this area, Jerusalem's right here in the center. There's like a bullseye that ripples out, but all these dots are cities and kingdoms, because it was the linear ages, 6,000 years, 36,000 years, 25,000 years, whatever, where it was a male testosterone-driven reality, kings and mighty men attacking and fighting each other. But some mighty men seem to be stronger than others, and we had the sons of God that came down on Mount Hermon, which is up here to the north, and there's this mysterious city of Dan it's at the foothill, it's at the foot of Mount Hermon. So I'm going to tell you the sons of God landed here, and I'm going to tell you there might have been a two-faced God, a mighty man living up on this mountain with Dan kind of at the foot of his throne at his feet, a lawgiver between the feet of a mighty man, God Lord. But I think these mighty men were living all over the place, and they were both good and bad. Samson from this area, Gideon, Samson was a son, he was a Danite, so we know that the Dans were these mighty men. Were they blonde, blue-eyed? Possibly, because there seems to be this connection between ships, the shoreline, wandering, and the blondness going up north to the Baltic countries, Denmark and Norway. But what we got going here is Dan and Judah, are like twin pillars, because it tells us that both of them are lion's whelp, which means they're sucking the milk from the mama's breast, which means, the mother's breast, that's the worship of the mother goddess, that's a dark reflection. There could be a light reflection, is that, God, you got to get some milk from God too, but eventually got to grow up and wean yourself off the milk and eat the bread, But Dan and Judah are both lion's whelps. Dan, there's this prophecy where, the blessing in Genesis 49, I believe it is, but it says, Dan is a serpent in the way and an adder in the path. And, in the Garden of Eden, the serpent came into the garden. Was that Dan? An angel who is either represented by Dan, or that's the name of the angel, Dan, But Dan came into the serpent, or Dan the serpent came into the garden and beguiled Eve, the female lamb, and there's this tradition of giving female lambs. Abraham at the well of Beersheba, from Dan to Beersheba. Beersheba means the well of the sevenfold oath, where Abraham gave Abimelech, this king, this mighty man, this two-faced God possibly, 7 ewe lambs to be witnesses to the covenant that they were making between them. But, just to me, Dan, a serpent in the way, all of a sudden the serpent shows up in the garden. And Dan is this tribe is it a tribe of Israel? Because it says Dan will act as a judge of his people like a tribe of Israel. And there's this big mystery of Dan. Like, Dan seems to be Alpha and Omega and mixed up all over, because Dan, the son of Jacob, doesn't happen till way down the timeline. But before Dan was even born, in Genesis 14, there's this battle. And actually, I'm going to switch. I had Hosea queued up, but I'm going to switch right over to Genesis. But Genesis 14, it is the story of the battle of the 4 kings against the 5 kings. It says in Genesis 14:1, and it came to pass in these days of Amphirel, the king of Shinar, Arioch, the king of Elasar, Chedorlaomer, the king of Elam, and Tidal, the king of nations. The 4 kings made war on the 5 kings, and the 5 kings had been serving Chedorlaomer for 12 years and rebelled in the 13th year. And on the 14th year, the four kings started kicking everybody's asses because they attacked the Rephaims, which are the remnants of the Nephilim, the Zuzims in Ham. So there's that connection to Noah's son Ham, who his Canaan got cursed. But the Zuzims, all this stuff is wicked evil, man. The Rephaim were the descendants of the Nephilim that leap out of Ashtaroth, Bashan. The Zuzims were roving creatures, beasts in Ham. The emus it's known as terror. And so what you got is 4 dark, wicked kings fighting 4 even darker wicked kings, because out of the 5 kings were the kings of Sodom, the kings of Gomorrah, the king of Adamah, which is the city of Adam, the city of Zeboim, which is where Lot pulled in, after the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, and the city of Bela, which means destruction. But all the kings, their names mean like son of evil, with iniquity, son of wickedness, to fear, son of fear, handful of sheaves, the fall of the sayer of darkness. So the point is here, my friends, is that when we have this battle of Evermore, people want to think that it's good versus darkness, but war seldom is split, light versus dark. Both sides are basically wicked. Both sides are telling the people doing the fighting and the killing and the stabbing that it is black and white, and that you're on the side of the light and you're attacking the side of the dark. But the truth is, in war, man, usually both sides of the war are at the higher echelons are principalities, people with power, where it's not so clear who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. But in Genesis 14, ultimately the 318 appear, because the 4 kings end up kicking butt on the 5 kings, and they end up taking Abraham's son-in-law, Lot, captive and all of his stuff. So Abraham then takes his 318 trained Jedi servants and goes and whoops ass on the 4 and gets Lot and all of his stuff back. And when he comes back, Melchizedek, the high priest of Jerusalem, the city of peace, comes out, and there's all this spiritual stuff going down, but I don't want to get bogged down. But Genesis 14, it's like the battle of Siddim on the plain or the field, which is basically by the Dead Sea. It's basically an Armageddon type battle, but there's more than 2 forces. It's not just good against dark. It's basically dark against dark against dark. There's 3 forces of darkness, and then there's Abraham, who is a force of might, of God's arm. But Genesis 14, here's the time loop. It says, when Abraham heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his trained servants, born in his own house, 318 of them, and we'll get into that number 318 because it's got some crazy stuff. It represents Jesus Christ's army, and pursued them unto Dan. And Dan is this city up north at the foot of Mount Hermon. Hermoney, Harmony. But Dan is where they were worshiping the goddess, as far as a religion. And basically, Genesis 14:14 says, Abraham pursued them unto Dan. But you know what? That city was called Laish. And later on in the Bible, Dan, the tribe, for whatever reason, they're not given their proper allocation, their inheritance. When Joshua comes in and they conquer the land of Israel, everybody seems to get their slice of the pie, except for Dan. And Dan's hiding up in the mountains of Ephraim, being chased by the Amorites and some other people. But Dan eventually, they're mighty men, and they consult this temple up on Mount Ephraim where there's a guy from the tribe of Judah who gives them some advice and says, go up there and kill everybody in Laish, which they do, and they rename it the city of Dan. So it's really peculiar that Abraham pursued the 4 kings unto Dan. Some people are saying it proves that Moses didn't write the Torah. All right, hey, this Operation End Times, the Battle of Evermore, Part 1. God bless you, and I think I'm going to go to Part 2 here.